Welcome. In this video, we'll be finding out about the programming language that you probably shouldn't learn as a beginner. A couple of disclaimers before I begin. This list is based on the convenience of learning the language and getting employed very quickly. You learn the syntaxes and make projects so that you can interview as quickly as possible. You get hired by a startup or a multinational company in any of the roles like a normal full-time offer or maybe even a freelancer or a contractor. The question itself is extremely complex as most of the what language is the best questions. It depends on what you want to achieve. Languages are tools. There is no Swiss Army knife in the field of programming. Every language is good for something and not so good for something else. The first question is, what do you want to build? If, for example, you want to make web applications, the worst place to start might be C or assembly. If you want to build device drivers, PHP is the worst thing ever. If you want to make video games, just stay away from Ruby. If you want to build phone apps, Pascal is useless. So stay away from all of that. So it all depends. They depend on what kind of a career path you would like to opt for. Let's say that you want to specialize in web development, then learning Flutter may not be the best thing to do. For this purpose, learning JavaScript and Python is the way forward. Regardless, here is a top 6 list of languages that you shouldn't be learning in this year. This list has been curated according to the number of jobs available and how fast the language is growing in terms of development and other people using it for other kinds of purposes. This is not a definitive list though, so feel free to take any advice with a grain of salt. I am just a kid in college trying to make YouTube videos. If you feel like any of these languages are useful and satisfy your case, go ahead and learn them. I'm just asking you to avoid these languages as a beginner because they're becoming increasingly obsolete and or have been replaced by newer, more useful languages. With that being said, let's get started. Number 0, Scratch. Scratch is a programming language that is mostly used to teach younger kids how to start programming. It really isn't a language per se, but just a logic building tool for very young people. But in my opinion, most kids would benefit from learning on an actual code editor or an IDE, which stands for Integrated Develop Environment, which is the place where you write all your code. While it can attract the newer generation with its blocks and vibrant colors, it's not a very accurate representation of what programming actually is. It is also very likely to set up your child to believe in something which is not true. It's not a very accurate representation of software engineering or how to build up code bases. Coding on an actual IDE will set them up for success in real life later, where they don't feel very intimidated from the transition from a very childish gaming type of an environment to building on an actual code editor. Number 1, assembly. This language's use is not just as widespread as it was before. It is also included in our college curricula because they just have to teach us the most outdated things ever. As someone who's currently going through this course in college, I find this language to be extremely tedious and I don't think I will ever use it in real life to build something. Assembly is a very low level language. It is mostly used to communicate with the hardware, the microprocessors, the registers, and very low level compartments of the computer. You'll understand more about how CPUs work and just appreciate how much high level languages have made our life easier. It took more than 100 lines of code just to display a simple message on the screen. By going back to the roots, you might be able to understand how CPUs work, how they access RAM, how it is indexed and being referred, and what the stack and program counter is. I don't ever see myself using this language in the future, so I think my time learning this language was pretty much a waste. If you really want to go into the nitty-gritties of how a computer works and work with hardware, it's useful, otherwise pretty much trash. Number 2, Pascal. Pascal is an imperative and procedural programming language designed by Nicholas Wirth as a small efficient language used to teach programmers about good practices using structured programming and data structuring. It is also named after the French physicist and mathematician Blaise Pascal. You heard about him, right? While Pascal is a reliable and efficient programming language, it is mostly used to teach programming techniques. In my opinion, though, if you'd like to go with a first language, go with something that is a lot more popular and widely acceptable like C++, Java, or Python. Number 3, Ruby. Ruby is a language that is mostly used for the backend or the server side, although it is a full stack web framework. It has been slowly losing popularity, no longer the hottest technology on the market. Some alternatives to learning Ruby on Rails would be Next.js. It adds server side rendering to sites built with React components in a fairly sane way. Or Buffalo, which is written in Go. Or Phoenix, which is built on top of Elixir and the Erlang Beanwheel. It has incredible performance. Number 4, Objective-C. I have personally never had any experiences with this language, but according to widespread internet opinions, it is becoming increasingly obsolete. Apple used to code all their softwares and hardware on this language. They still do, but in my opinion, it's kind of redundant now. As the overall developer community is concerned, it's pretty much dead and buried. There still are plenty of people who are using Objective-C, but they aren't blogging, they aren't actively looking for work. So if you're new in the market, if you want to get a job as quickly as possible, don't learn Objective-C. It isn't going to get you past the initial automated screens or HR calls. Swift is the only way to go in this town now. Number 5, C. Please don't come for me. I am apologizing right now in advance. I know that it is one of the oldest and best languages ever, but I just don't think that it is very appropriate for a beginner to learn. You won't be able to get a job very quickly or feel like you're making a lot of progress as a complete beginner. C is one of the most fundamental languages in computer science and everything that has to do with it. A lot of languages and all the libraries and frameworks are written in C. It's a pretty good language to learn if you're somewhat of a seasonal professional or a veteran in this field. As a beginner, C can sound very time consuming and very tedious because you are going to get stuck in a lot of places, and for C, that happens a lot more often than some other languages. Just my personal recommendation though, don't mind me. I'm just again a random kid trying to provide some value on the internet. Lastly, since you've been here till the end, here is a bonus tip for you. Any of the new popular programming languages like Clojure, Haskell, Julia, all of them are also not very ideal for a complete beginner to learn and want to get a job as quickly as possible. They do make sense later, but the abstractions are just too deep to be useful. These languages are mostly suitable for people who are looking to explore other languages, mostly intermediate and expert developers. They're just having fun with it and expanding their repertoire. It's not something that I would recommend to a beginner, not even to a person who has less than a couple of years of experience coding and programming and building logic. I myself also do not delve into those languages because I'm not completely adept in this field yet. I don't have a lot of experience and all the simpler concepts are not yet solidified in my head yet. This is it for today. What did you think of the video? Tell me about it in the comments. As always, like, share, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!